din yor je la jang zam pa ma ge za dong ba yam zam jo go ngo zhou ni ba ma zhong ni ji sa zhang guo deng gan zhong mong bo ji 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 sa da zhe ji shen ji la jia jia Guru Bama Sarda Ho Oma Hong Banzar Guru Bama Sarda Ho Oma Hong Banzar Guru Bama Sarda Ho Oma Hong Banzar Guru Bama Sarda 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 Ho Jila Da Jan Sora Da Bi Da so gan de ni be sab jo ze na dang bon da zo jwa chu dang zha jin be ren za de so ro chum dum ding gong bon jia hua ra ya la xiang za lo geng ge lu zhu de ni zhen zhen ni de nam da ra ze ri zhen ni dong gen zhe 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 ni ji de ge long刚到这边做了马路门头等我的节日为着做跟拉我就到这样了这边样的这的节奏呢么呢老理解叫做中在讲马路么是另外那个今年中在拉着多年大家在进大家用的那种简直都个是找这当是你简直到Menzir Jawaraya Landa, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazan. Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazanardo, Umara Bazan. Umara Bazanardo, Zidun Jim Jero, Wazir Ji, Dalu Dam, Mambara Zani, Guadang Dam Jong Dombai, Lodro Rubi Nawa Jid, Soro, Nyaji Jimbo, Tudun Yimi Jang, Zone Molum Jimbo, Gaviat, Pakara Dangan Zandu Germado, Domba Diji Janla Janzalo. 各位道友大家上午好。
Good morning to all Dharma friends here today.
我们现在准备讲今天上午的这个课。那么我们今天上午呢，就讲这个四法宝鬘论。
So we are going to begin now with the teaching for this morning, and we are going to begin with our text for the teachings of these 5 days, which is a precious garland for the 4 themes.
听课之前请大家发菩提心。
Before we begin with the teaching, everybody please make an aspiration of bodhicitta.
菩提心就是用一句话来讲的话，那就是我们为了为了帮助天下所有的众生我要成佛。为了成佛，我今天来学习这样子的发心叫做菩提心。
So to put bodhicitta in just a few words, it is the aspiration to help other beings by attaining Buddhahood, and then in order to attain Buddhahood, it's with this aspiration and wish that we attend today's teaching. So this, in a nutshell, is what our aspiration of bodhicitta is.
那么这个四法宝鬘论是尼玛巴的有一位非常了不起的成就者叫做龙钦巴那么这个龙钦巴他是一个大圆满的成就者那么他写的一本书就是一个文章一个短短的文章，这叫做四法宝鬘论。
So the text that we're going to be basing these 5 days teaching on is written by a very great realized master in the Nyingma tradition. The text itself is a relatively short one. It's called A Precious Garland for the 4 Themes.
四法宝鬘论它的内容是什么呢？就是我们刚刚学佛的人还没有学佛的时候呢，我们怎么样进入佛门？ 然后呢进入佛门以后怎么样修心最后要达到一个什么样的目标这个整个的过程分了4个阶段来讲。
The contents of this text can be separated into 4 stages. The first is instructions or advice on how we go about entering into the Buddhist path as people who are new to Buddhism or haven't yet begun setting out on that path. And then it proceeds with advice on how we should practice after we have entered into the path, and finally the result that we are seeking to accomplish through our practice.
好，那么这个4个阶段就叫做4法宝鬘论4法。4法当中的第一个行趋于法，意思就是说我们的行趋向于佛法首先就是一个普通的人没有学过佛的人就在现实生活当中就是有某些原因他就想开始去了解佛法，然后就想去学佛那这个就是我们的心的趋向它的发展的方向或者是他去追求佛法。那什么样的情况下他会追求佛法，他会进入佛法第一个就讲这个。
So of these 4 stages that are covered in this text, these are what are referred to as the 4 themes in the title. And of the 4 themes, the first one is that of turning the mind towards the Dharma. And here when we talk about turning, we're talking about an orientation towards the Dharma, an orientation towards Dharma practice. So an ordinary person who has not yet turned to the Dharma or turned to learning it or studying it, under what kind of circumstance are they able to, or what kind of circumstances foster them in turning their mind to the Dharma, to seeking the Dharma and studying its contents and practicing it.
好，第二4法宝鬘的第二就是法趋于道就是学佛学法，那么应该学一个什么样的法呢就是修道要不就是学大乘的道，要不就学小乘的道，要就是走上一个正轨的道才能够达到我们的目标。所以学法就是要趋于道，这是第二个意思。
The second theme, or the second stage of the teaching, is having the Dharma function as a pathway of the mind. This is about determining the path that we should proceed on as students of the Buddha Dharma. So in order to study Buddhism, it's necessary that we have a path, whether it be the Mahayana path or the path of the basic vehicle. So this second stage is about this, determining the path.
第三，道消除迷迷就是迷惑用佛教的话讲叫做无明那么学了道那他最终要做什么呢就是要破除我们的迷就是因为迷就是无明，也就是说我们不了解这个世界的本质，也不了解我们自己的生命的本质，然后在这个世界当中有很多很多是我们不了解的因为我们不了解，所以我们对自己的生命对外面的世界就产生了很多很多的迷惑就要把它消除我们就用佛的智慧来消除这些迷这个就是一个学佛的过程当中一个最重要的一个环节这是第三。
The third stage, or the third theme, is having the pathway mind eliminate confusion. So this is talking about dispelling or eliminating confusion and ignorance from our minds, having identified our path, then this is the next step to take. In general, this confusion that we have is manifested in a lack of understanding both as to the world around us and as to the nature of our own selves, the nature of our own worlds, of our own minds. As a result, we have a lot of ignorance, whether it's to the outside world or ourselves, and so it's this stage is particularly important. We seek to eliminate this confusion by applying the Buddha's wisdom.
第四，迷敬为直迷就是我们的迷茫、迷惑。然后，当我们学道、学佛，这些迷清净了以后呢，我们的这个心的本性就是佛心然后呢，这个佛心就会这个时候我们的佛心就会得到清净。佛心的本性它本来就是清净的，但是呢，因为我们现在有很多的烦恼，那么这个烦恼把这个佛心的本来的面目遮盖，不让我们看见不让我们看见。那么到时候我们学了道，就把这些迷、这些烦恼全部消除了以后呢，比如说这个天空中的乌云全部消散的时候呢，就我们会看到蓝天同样的，我们把这些所有的烦恼消除了以后，就自然就会看见就会证悟佛的智慧这叫做迷敬为智。
The fourth stage, or the fourth theme, is that of purifying confusion into deep awareness. So this is referring to a purification of our afflictions, our disturbing emotions, so that our fundamental Buddha nature can be revealed. The nature or the essence of the Buddha nature is in fact pure. However, it's due to the fact of our many disturbing emotions and afflictions that it is hidden, covered. And so in having determined our path of practice and applying ourselves to its practice, we therefore seek to eliminate the clouds that are obscuring the clearness of our blue sky, which is a metaphor that we can use to liken to the way our minds are obscured by afflicting emotions. So when this has happened, then we will have realized the nature of our Buddha nature.
好，接下来我们讲这个四法宝鬘论当中的第一个行趋法。
So we're going to begin now by talking about the first of these themes, turning the mind towards the Dharma.
那我们今天在座的每一个人不是生下来的时候就学佛的不是从小就学佛然后长大了以后呢，绝大多数都是长大了以后就是因为各种各样的原因，我们的心中就有一种想法我要去学佛，我要去了解一下我要去学一下佛法，就是不同的环境或者是教育或者是其他的原因反正就有各种各样的原因。那么这些条件下，我们的心里就产生了一个这样子的念头我要去学佛，那这个就叫做行趋法。
Of everybody sitting here today, probably very few people were born Buddhists or began learning Buddhism from a very young age in life. Probably most people turned to the Buddha Dharma as adults or when they were a bit older. At some point in time when you were older, the thought emerged in your minds, the inclination, a desire to learn more about Buddhism, to understand it. This might have been the result of a new contextual factor in your life, your educational surrounds, or perhaps some other reason. However, this interest or this orientation towards the Dharma is what we refer to as a mind which is turning towards the Dharma.
我们首先了解一下佛教它本身在一个什么样的情况下诞生的。
So we're going to first look at the kind of conditions under which this mind emerges.
有些人说宗教就是因为还没有科技发达的时候，古代的人就是他没有办法去解释很多自然的现象，自然界的很多现象他没有办法去解释。还有一个就是因为有些东西是超越了人的能力，当时的人的能力的这些问题他解决不了的时候呢，然后心中产生了恐慌，在这个时候呢，为了得到一个精神上的安慰，就创造了一个某一种宗教有这样子的说法。
So we're actually going to be talking about the conditions, the historical or social conditions under which religion is considered to emerge. There are, for example, people who say that in eras gone by when science did not exist and people needed explanations for various natural phenomena, etc., that they weren't otherwise able to explain, that they therefore invented religion. Others say that when humans in history encountered situations that surpassed their ability to cope with, that religion was invented as a means of providing some kind of comfort.
那佛教是一个什么样的情况下诞生的呢？首先，释迦牟尼佛当时他是一个印度的一个小国家的国王的太子。
Insofar as Buddhism is concerned, Buddhism began with the Shakyamuni Buddha, who was the prince of a small kingdom.
那么这个小国家叫做迦毗罗卫国今天就在这个尼泊尔跟印度的交界的地方。
And this small kingdom was found on the border of contemporary Nepal and India.
那他当时呢不叫释迦牟尼佛，就叫做悉达多太子。
Back then, originally, he wasn't referred to as Shakyamuni. He was known as Prince Siddhartha.
他的父亲叫做净饭王，是当时的这个小国家的国王。
And his father was called in Chinese Jin Fan Wang, and he was the ruler of this kingdom.
那么太子在一般的情况下，他就在这个皇宫里面过这个很高档、很奢侈的生活，一般都是不出门的。
So the offspring of such rulers, the prince, for example, usually led extremely luxurious lifestyles. They usually remained within the confines of the palace and did not go outside.
那有一天呢，他想出门到他们的这个皇宫以外的老百姓的生活当中去了解一下他们的生活。
But one day, Prince Siddhartha decided that he wanted to go outside the gates of the palace into the world that lay beyond in order to understand the life that was going on outside.
那么当天他出去的时候呢，他就发现了在他们的这个城里面他们的这个老百姓当中呢有很多他发现了很多意外的事情。很多人是非常非常贫穷的很多人是生病没有人管很多人衰老也没有人照顾很多人死亡那么看见了这个生老病死的这个痛苦的时候呢，然后他就发现这个他的皇宫里面的这个生活跟外面的这个老百姓的这个生活实际的生活之间的差距实在是非常非常的大。
So when Prince Siddhartha did leave the palace gates, he discovered many extraordinary things about the world he discovered outside. Firstly, he found that there were many people who were poor and impoverished. There were many sick people, there were people aging, and there were many people dying as well. So having observed these sufferings of samsara, birth, aging, illness, and death, he discovered that in actual fact his lifestyle inside the palace and that outside the gates of the palace were extremely different. There was a vast disparity between these two worlds.
然后他也发现有一些出家人在追求真理，在修心当然这个还不是佛教的出家人，这个时候还没有诞生佛教。
He also discovered some ordained practitioners who were seeking spiritual truth. However, these were not Buddhist practitioners. Buddhism at this stage had not yet originated. However, he did discover people pursuing this kind of search.
然后他看到了这些人的这个生活生老病死的痛苦的时候呢，他心里产生了一个非常强大的慈悲心那么他就回了皇宫以后呢，他一直就把这个外面的事情就记在心里，他一直都想怎么样可以解决他们的这些痛苦。
At any rate, when Prince Siddhartha after having witnessed these various sufferings of samsara in the outside world, when he generated or it was aroused in him a very strong response of compassion. So when he returned to the palace, he couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen and thinking about how he could go about resolving the sufferings of the beings that he had witnessed.
他看到了外面的这些事情，然后生起了强大的慈悲心以后呢，他对王宫里面的这些世事的生活立即就不感兴趣他一点兴趣都没有，他一直都想去寻找一个解决这个痛苦的方法。
So after having witnessed the sufferings of samsara in the outside world, he became extremely disinterested in the luxurious lifestyle of the palace. And with a very strong motivation of compassion, he decided to immediately set upon finding a way to solve the sufferings that he had seen.
然后因为他看到一些出家人在修心他想如果他去寻找这个解决的方法的话也应该是可以的，应该是可以找到一些他应该是可以找到一些真相，他们为什么贫穷，为什么衰老，为什么生病为什么死亡，他有这个自信，他觉得我可以找到这个答案，所以我一定要出去寻找真理。
So having seen that there were spiritual practitioners outside seeking to find the truth, Prince Siddhartha gained confidence or increased in his confidence that by leaving the palace and going outside, that it would be possible for him to discover why it was that people were suffering from aging, illness, and death. He felt confident that this would be possible.
然后他的父亲金藩王就意识到了太子的想法，所以金藩王就害怕失去他的太子没有人给他当国王，所以他就用他的军队24小时都收治他的太子。
When Prince Siddhartha's father, the king, got wind of his son's idea, he became extremely concerned that he would lose his son to this pursuit and then there would be no one to take over in his rule. So for this reason, he put Prince Siddhartha under 24-hour surveillance by his army.
但是后来太子还是离开了王宫。
However, despite this, Prince Siddhartha did end up leaving the palace.
佛教就是在一个这样子的情况下诞生的，所以他的目的，他的目标，唯一的目标，就是为了解决所有人的生老病死的这个痛苦而诞生。
So it was from this point that Buddhism originated. From this we can see that the sole purpose of Buddhism from its very beginning was to solve or eliminate the sufferings of samsara, birth, aging, illness, and death.
并不是因为解释不了自然现象并不是因为有些超越普通人的能力范围的问题解决不了，产生了恐慌，就创造自己的精神安慰。
It was due to this purpose that Buddhism originated. It was not due to a lack of ability to explain certain kinds of natural phenomena, and neither was it born of a desire to comfort people in a situation where circumstances exceeded their capacity to cope with them.
好，接下来我们为什么要学佛？我们自己释迦牟尼佛他学佛学习的原因就是这样子，在这种情况下他去学的那我们呢是为了什么学佛呢？为什么学佛？接下来我们介绍一下这个问题。
So this was the reason that the Buddha himself set out to study, set out to find the truth. This was his motivation. What are our motivations, or what are the reasons that we seek to study Buddhism? I'd like to go on and look at this in more detail.
首先佛教它在追求什么有些人说佛教是追求未来的，追求来世的。佛教不关心现实而关心来世。
So what is it that Buddhism is seeking to achieve or oriented towards achieving? Some people say that Buddhism is future-oriented. That is, it's oriented towards future lives, positive rebirth, and is disinterested in this current existence.
那么这个说法对吗？佛教是这样子吗？不是佛教不是仅仅只追求来世。
Is this a correct view of Buddhism? No, it is not. Buddhism is not solely concerned with future lives.
有一本书叫做《中观400论》。
There is a text called the 400 Madhyamaka Verses.
这里面讲得很清楚，如果佛教只追求来世我们现实 放弃了很多很多现实生活当中的幸福快乐，然后就去只追求来世，这样子的话，那就是这个中观四百论就说，那么这个方法不就是我们去打工和就像我们去打工一样，比如说我去打工，我给你干活，那么你来给我解决我的生活的问题，那不就是去打工一样吗？有什么意思呢？所以佛教不是牺牲现世追求来世。
And in this text, it says very clearly that Buddhism is not just about future existences, sacrificing and forsaking all of the pleasures and happiness of this existence. What this text says is that if this were the case, it would be like we are doing working as paid laborers for our future existence, so that we are essentially sacrificing every now for some future time.
那有些人呢，把佛教当作一个我们现实生活的一个调味品比如说我们在现实生活当中遇到一些问题就是工作上的、家庭的、婚姻的、感情的等等。遇到问题的时候呢，我们去求佛去烧香拜佛，佛陀来解决我的这个请求佛陀来解决我的这个生活上的这些问题那么这样子他们呢把佛教就是当做一个现实生活的调味品。那么这个学习的方法、学佛的方法对吗？也不对，佛教也不仅仅是现实生活的调味品。
Other people approach Buddhism as a condiment for this worldly life, or rather as a means to make changes, to make positive change and intervention in this worldly life. So when they encounter problems in their work or marriage, families, relationships, etc., then they turn to Buddhism, they make incense offerings, they supplicate the Buddha, they make requests of the Buddha to change their circumstances and make them positive. This, however, is also not what Buddhism is all about. It is not just all about bringing positive change or intervention in one's worldly existence in this way.
那么佛教既不追求来世又不追求现世，那它到底追求什么呢？就追求两个字。
So if Buddhism is not primarily pursuing or concerned with primarily with the future life or with making positive interventions in this positive life, then what is it primarily concerned with? There are two key things that it is focused mainly on.
两个字是什么呢？第一个智，第二个悲，智慧。
And these two words are wisdom and compassion.
当初释迦牟尼佛也就是追求这两个，就是智悲，对他所看到的这些人这些生老病死面临生老病死痛苦的人产生了很大的慈悲心然后呢他最后发现这些人的生老病死的这个问题真正能够解决的是什么呢？不是其他的，就是智慧，智慧才可以解决生老病死的问题。所以佛陀当时的他也就是追求了这两个字。那么我们今天我们佛教徒去学佛的话，那我们的目标，我们的追求是什么呢？追求慈悲心，追求智慧，这就是我们的学佛的理由。
It was these two things that the Buddha himself was primarily concerned with at the very beginning of his search. To begin with, having witnessed the sufferings of samsara, birth, aging, illness, death, he developed a very strong sense of, firstly, compassion and desire to find means for resolving or eliminating these kinds of suffering. And then his final realization was that there was in fact no other means to addressing or resolving these forms of suffering other than wisdom. So it is these two things, compassion and wisdom, that were the Buddha's chief concerns, and similarly as students of Buddhism ourselves, they should also be our two main concerns.
好，佛教用这个慈悲心和智慧来解决我们的现实的很多的问题，还有来世的很多的问题。他并没有刻意的去追求现实，追求来世，他就追求这两个字。这两个字可以解决我们的现实的问题，也可以解决来世的问题。
So even though the Buddha was not fixated primarily on better or more positive rebirth or addressing worldly problems in this life, the fact is that his two focuses of compassion and wisdom are actually able to bring much benefit to both of these concerns. However, the primary two things he was concerned with were compassion and wisdom.
佛教用佛教的智慧来解释这个世界用佛陀的智慧来解释我们人的生命的真相。
So he was concerned to use the Buddha's wisdom to explain the truth of human existence.
那么佛教他用他的智慧去看这个世界的时候，他发现这个世界它不仅仅是物质，所以佛教它不是唯物。
So when Buddhists use this approach to look at the external world, they don't see it as entirely material in nature. So Buddhists are not materialists.
然后他发现这个世界也不仅仅是精神所以他也不是唯心主义。
And similarly, looking at the world, Buddhists don't regard it as solely mind. So Buddhists are neither idealists.
他也不承认有造物主的存在，所以他也不是宗教，西方概念中的宗教。
Buddhists don't recognize a creator God. So Buddhism, therefore, is not similar to religious or ideas of Buddhism does not share certain concepts of religion that prevail in Western understandings of religion.
那么它的内容当中包含了很多的哲学的东西，但是它不是哲学。
And even though there is much philosophical content in the Buddha's teachings, Buddhism isn't just a philosophy.
那么佛教的内容当中有很多很多科学的东西，但是它不是现在人的心目当中的这个科学，也就是说它不是现代的科学。
And even though the Buddhist tradition has many teachings that are scientific in nature, Buddhism is not a science, or at least not a science as science is understood in the eyes of modern or contemporary people.
那么它既不是哲学，又不是科学，那它到底是什么学呢？它就是佛学。
So if Buddhism is neither a science or a philosophy, then what is Buddhism? How do we describe it? Well, Buddhism is the study of the Buddhist teachings.
它为什么叫做佛学呢？就是两个原因。第一个就是因为他释迦牟尼佛从悉达多太子最后证悟成佛，然后成佛以后他创造出来的这么一个学说一个方法， 一个系统的教育，所以它叫佛学。
And the reason that we refer to Buddhism as its own discipline comprised of the Buddhist teachings is that from the time the Buddha, from the time he was Prince Siddhartha until the time that he obtained enlightenment, the Buddhist teachings, he developed a set of systematic teachings or methods, an education program, and that's why we refer to Buddhism as being a discipline unto itself.
第二个原因呢，就是因为他的这个教育和方法可以就像我们这样子的一个普普通通的人最后就可以变成佛，我们的境界可以提升到佛的境界，它就是一个把一个普通人变成佛的一个方法，所以叫做佛学。
And another reason that we refer to the Buddhism as a discipline unto itself is that it contains within it an education, a method, a program that is capable of changing a person or growing an ordinary person from their original state into that of Buddhahood. And it is this systematic training program that is distinctive of the Buddhist tradition.
好，这个以上就是我们简单的介绍了佛教的来源和佛教它的追求。
So that was just a simple overview of the origins of Buddhism and its purposes or goals.
好，接下来我们就讲我们怎么样我们的心趋入佛法，也就是说我们怎么样让我们产生一个我要去学佛，我要去学佛法，我要进入佛门的这样子的心怎么样产生介绍这个。
So now we are going to look at how we go about actually turning our mind towards the Dharma, how it is that we decide, orient ourselves to studying the Dharma, to practicing the Dharma, to wanting to enter the gate of the Dharma.
首先要了解一下我们自己的这个生命的价值。
The first thing that it's necessary for us to do is to have an understanding of the value of our lives.
我们今天大家都是人我们可以去学习哲学科学，我们可以发展我们的经济，然后我们可以做很多很多的工作，然后我们可以去享受生活我们可以去赚钱，可以去买大一点的房子，可以去买很多的奢侈品，还有可以去享受这些东西。除了这些以外，我们还可以做什么呢？
So as humans having human existences, there are many things that we can do, many endeavors we can apply ourselves to. We can study philosophy, we can study science, we can improve our knowledge about all manner of things. We can work, we can make money, we can use this money to buy a bigger house, to buy many luxury items. It's possible for us to, as humans, to enjoy these various aspects of life. In addition to being able to do all of these things, what else is there that we are able to do?
然后我们用我们现有的现在的这些感官，比如说我们的眼睛可以看很漂亮的外面的世界美好的世界，然后我们的耳朵可以听很好听的音乐，然后我们的舌头我们可以尝美味等等，我们的感官可以做这些。然后呢，那除了这些以外，我们还有没有什么可以做更高的事情，或者是 我们有没有一个我们的这个人啊，我们人有没有一种功能可以去享受更高的幸福，更高的快乐。
So relying on our senses with our eyes, we can use these to behold all kinds of beautiful sights in the world around us. We can use our ears to listen to pleasant sounding music. We can use our tongues, our tongue sense, our taste sense to enjoy all kinds of delicious foods. In addition to being able to do all of these things, do we have a capacity or some ability or function that will enable us to enjoy something of a more high nature? Do we have the capacity to enjoy a kind of happiness, in fact, that transcends these kinds?
如果我们去创造很多的外面的这个物质世界，然后呢，用这个物质世界来刺激我们的感官啊，然后在这个刺激的过程当中啊，我们去感受啊，这个通过刺激的这种感受啊，把它当作一种享受，一种快乐啊。那么除了这个以外，我们真的是没有可以追求的东西吗？
Is it that beyond being able to use our abilities to construct material things or accumulate material things which we then use to stimulate our senses, and through doing this create a sense of enjoyment and pleasure, is there anything we're able to do than engage in this kind of process?
然后我们我们用的这些电器不断的在提升，比如说我们用的苹果手机、苹果3、苹果4、5、6，都一个的在升级。那我们知道我们自己怎么样升级吗？
So our electronic appliances, such as our iPhones, they're constantly being upgraded in their technology. There was the iPhone 3, 4, 5, 6, and so it keeps going. We know all about upgrades in our electrical equipment, but do we know how to actually upgrade our own minds?
然后我们用的这些电器体积越来越小，功能越来越大都在这样子提升。那我们知不知道我们的感官、我们的生命也可以这样子提升？
So we know that in terms of our electronic appliances, that they're every day becoming smaller and smaller, but their functions becoming more and more. Do we understand that our own sense organs and our own minds too are able to upgrade in this same way?
难道我们人只能提升物质世界没有办法提升自己的生命的境界没有办法提升自己的智慧吗？
Is it the case that humans are only able to upgrade and improve their physical material surrounds and are not able to improve or upgrade the state of their minds and human existences?
那佛教的答案就是不。
And the answer to this, from a Buddhist perspective, is no.
除了我们去创造这个物质世界以外，我们可以去创造更加的辉煌的精神世界。
So in addition to being able to build a material world, it is also possible for us to construct or create an even more magnificent spiritual.
通过现代科技提升我们身边的这些所有东西一样，我们可以提升我们的智慧，我们可以升级我们的生命可以提升我们的生命的级别。
So in addition to being able to use our talents to improve or upgrade the external world, the material world, it's also possible for us to upgrade and continually improve our own knowledge, our own human existences, the level of our human existence.
那么佛教它的追求是什么呢？就是让我们去提升我们的生命的级别。
So what the Buddha's objective was to teach us how to go about increasing or upgrading this level of our human existence.
佛教的意思就是说，我们如果有这个条件，我们想提升自己的拥有的这些东西，可以的我们身边的这些很多的设备我们的很多的电器，如果你想提升也可以的。但是呢，佛告诉我们，最重要的要提升自己。
So even though it is possible for us to use our abilities to upgrade and improve our various devices and appliances, what the Buddha taught was that ultimately it is much more important to upgrade and improve ourselves.
我们这个提升了身边的所有的这些东西但是同时呢，我们有没有发现我们自己呢？越来越差。
Have we not discovered that as we go about continually improving and upgrading all of our devices and appliances, that in fact we ourselves are continually deteriorating?
我们的电脑，我们的电话就是级别越来越高。但是有没有发现我们的眼睛越来越差？
For example, our mobile phones keep getting better and better, but our eyesight keeps getting worse and worse.
然后我们在这个电脑一个很小很小的一个屏幕里面呢，可以看到全世界，然后我们可以收到全世界的信息。我们整天都在看这个一个很小的屏幕当中。不需要去很多地方，但有没有发现我们的颈椎越来越不行？
Have we also not discovered that as it's now possible for us to use an extremely small tablet screen to discover all about the world around us, and through this very small screen to have access to all the information in the world, that as we spend our entire day staring at this screen, that our necks are becoming increasingly sore.
然后我们拥有的物质越来越多，我们的房子越来越大，然后就开的车子就是越来越高级，用的这些用品都是越来越好，但有没有发现我们的幸福指数越来越低？
And by the same token, as our houses and apartments become increasingly large and our cars get larger and better and the things we use and consume become of better quality too, that our happiness index is getting lower and lower.
好，发现了这些事实以后呢，有些人就觉得我老是去提升这些外面的身外的东西。还不够我要去提升自己有这个想法，这个时候呢，我们的心就去入法。
So when upon realizing these facts, people find themselves feeling that it is no longer enough to simply direct all their energies to improving and updating their external world and their material objects, then this is the point that we can say a person's mind begins to turn towards the Dharma.
好，这个时候呢，我们了解了一下我们自己，要了解一下我们自己的生命。第一个，我们的生命是可不可以升级的？第二个，那我需不需要升级？
So, in terms of appreciating the value of our human existences, the first thing we need to ascertain is whether or not it is possible to upgrade our existences. And then the second thing we need to ascertain is whether or not this is something that we as individuals need or want to do.
然后我们会发现我们的内在的精神世界确实是可以被训练的可以被锻炼，可以被训练。训练了以后呢，从一个普通的人的这个精神，最后训练到佛的境界，这个是完全没有问题。第一个我们会发现这个。
And in respect of this first question, we will discover that it is indeed possible for us to train and to exercise our own minds such that it is possible from an ordinary person, through training themselves and exercising themselves in this way, to reach the state of a Buddha.
为什么这么讲呢？原因是什么？第一个，我们的内心当中经常让我们不愉快的、不幸福的这些情绪他们都不是我们的心的本心，它是我们的心在某种条件下就产生这样子的情绪，但是这些烦恼的情绪，它不是我们心的本心，它们两个完全是两回事。所以呢，我从这个心的本心上面就把这些烦恼的情绪可以把它抹掉可以把它消除断除这个完全是没有问题，因为它不是我们的心的本心。比如说，如果我的衣服上有一个肮脏的东西，如果它是这件衣服的本质那这是没办法洗的，因为是它的本质，它的本体上就这样子，我没有办法洗如果我这个衣服一开始的时候呢，它不是这样子那么这些肮脏的污垢是后来产生的，不是它的本质。那么这样子我可以把它洗掉的所以我们的这个内心当中这些所有的这些肮脏的这些情绪完全是可以洗掉因为它不是我们的心的本质。
The reason that we say that it is possible for an ordinary person to become a Buddha is that all of those things, negative moods, emotions, and mental states that obscure our mind's essence are precisely not its essence. This is not the mind in its most essential state. We can liken this to a dirty stain on some clothing. If the clothing was dirty to begin with, if the stain was part of the fabric in its original state, then it wouldn't be possible, regardless how much we washed it, to get rid of the stain. However, since the stain subsequently occurred to the piece of clothing and is not a part of its fundamental essence, it's possible to get rid of it. And so it is too with the various obscurations and other negative mental states that obscure our mind. It is also possible for us, by training our minds, to actually remove them.
好，这是第一，我们发现它是可以洗干净的那么第二，我们有没有这种方法把它洗干净有这个方法，我们有那么第一个，它可以洗得很干净第二个，我们有这个怎么样洗的方法，这两个都有。那么这两个条件都具备的话，我们会发现我们的人的这种境界是可以提升的，可以提高的。理论上，我们就发现这个是成立的。
So, not only then do we discover that our minds can be washed clean, but we also learn that there is a method for doing so. In order to wash our minds clean, it's necessary that we have a way or a method, and indeed we do. So given that our minds can be washed clean and that we have a way for washing them, then it is we have ascertained then for ourselves that it is possible to improve or upgrade our human existences, or at least that in theory this is a valid possibility.
我们的内心当中经常都有很多很多的情绪。那么这些情绪，我们可以分3种不同的情绪。第一个叫做毁灭性的情绪毁灭性的情绪，所谓的毁灭，就是一旦有了这个情绪，它会毁灭我自己然后如果我不控制好的话，如果它一发泄，那么它也会毁灭别人自己别人都会毁灭的。那这个是什么样的情绪？比如说很强大的这个仇恨抱怨这类的情绪叫做毁灭性的情绪。
In general, our minds harbor a lot of mental states or moods, and it's possible for us to divide these into 3 different types. The first type would be destructive thoughts, and by destructive we mean thoughts or mental states that are capable of destroying ourselves, and if we're not careful, also destroying others. An example of this would be extreme or intense hatred or resentment.
好，第二个叫做负面的情绪负面的情绪呢，虽然没有这个毁灭性的情绪，那么它的杀伤力没有那么大，它的破坏力没有那么大，但是呢，也让我们很不舒服、很不幸福很困扰。比如说就是工作生活当中产生的各种各样的压力还有我们对未来的焦虑，还有我们相互之间的这种攀比等等这些情绪是虽然没有毁灭性的情绪那么严重，但是他们也是很大的负面的这个能力，它具有很大的负面的能力，所以叫做负面的情绪。
And the second type is negative thoughts. So negative thoughts don't have as strong a destructive capacity or potential as destructive thoughts, but nevertheless they do bring us or lead us to feel unhappy. They cause us a lot of disturbance and agitation. So examples of these would be the sense of pressure that emerges from our everyday lives, our work lives, sense of anxiety, sense of stress, competitiveness that we feel between ourselves and others. These are all examples of negative thoughts because of these negative consequences that they bring to us. That's why we describe them as negative.
好，第3叫做垃圾情绪垃圾情绪呢，它也没有这个毁灭性的那么严重它也没有这个负面的情绪那么严重但是呢，它就是没有什么价值的，就是胡思乱想各种各样的胡思乱想。用我们佛教的话来讲，这叫做杂念就是乱七八糟的这些念头，叫做垃圾情绪。
And the third type is garbage thoughts or rubbish thoughts, using a Buddhist term to describe them, distracting thoughts or unconstructive thoughts. So these are thoughts that are not as serious in nature as destructive thoughts or negative thoughts. Nevertheless, they don't have any value, they don't have any worth. All they are is a big mess of distraction. So this is the third category of thought or mental state.
那么这3种情绪就是在我们的生活当中让我们特别不自在，特别不轻松，特别不自由，特别不幸福的这些情绪就是这3种情绪。
So it's these three types of thoughts or these three types of moods that cause us in our lives to feel very unfree, feel unhappy, not comfortable.
那么这三种情绪它是以什么样的因缘产生的呢？每一个情绪它有三种原因，它的产生只需要三个条件，在这个三个条件下它会产生。
So what are the causes and conditions or the causal factors underpinning the arising of these three different kinds of thoughts? Well, each category of thought has essentially three causal factors, and as long as these are existent, then such a thought or mental state will arise.
第一个我们每一个人的内心当中就有一个我们的精神世界里面呢，就有这个三种情绪的潜在的种子就像我们粮食的种子。比如说我们在一个肥沃的土壤里面呢，播下了一颗米它虽然还没有生长但是呢，这个种子呢就在里面我们每一个人的心里就有一个这样子的潜在的能量，如果一旦遇到了其他的条件的时候呢，它就会发生的每一个人的心里有一个这样子的能量，这叫做情绪的种子。所以呢，我们比如说谁都没有得罪我，谁都没有干扰我，我自己在一个没有任何人的地方，但是我的烦恼还是会出来的，还有我的这些情绪还是会出来的。那么是什么原因呢？就是因为有这个种子，所以它们会出现。
Every one of us in our minds has a potential seed for all of these three categories of mental states. So just as if we talk about a grain of rice and sowing the grain of rice in the fertile soil, then this would lead the rice to grow. But before this happened, the rice, the seed itself, contains the potentiality to grow if it comes into contact with other causes or conditions. So it's due to the fact that we have this latent or potential seed for these kinds of mental states in our minds that even times when we are in a place quite far away from other people, that these negative mental emotions or states emerge despite the fact that we are not in and amongst other people. So this is what we refer to as the seeds of mental states or seeds of thoughts.
第二个就是让我产生这些情绪的外在的因缘，外在的东西，外在的对象。比如说我心里产生了一个仇恨抱怨这样子的时候呢，那我应该有一个让我产生抱怨和仇恨的一个对境也许是一个人也许不是人，就是因为也许它是一件事情人也好，事也好，物质也好，会有一个这样子的东西的存在这是第二个原因。
So in addition to this first causal factor, which is the fact that we possess a potential seed in our minds for these kinds of thoughts, the second causal factor or condition that is needed for these thoughts to arise is external conditions or external factors. So we need, let's just say in terms of a thought of resentment or hostility, we need something in our external environment to prompt that or incite that. It might be a person, it might be a situation, it might be some kind of physical matter. In any case, these external factors or reasons are the second cause or condition.
第三个就是负面的态度负面的态度是什么？比如说 有人对我不好啊，那么如果我有一个正面的心态来对待这个人啊，虽然他对我不好，但是呢，我没有认为他对我不好，这样子的话，我这个烦恼的情绪不会产生的。所以这个时候，比如说有人对我不好，我也有一个负面的心态，我认为他对我不好啊，只要有这个负面的态度啊，那么这是第三个这个原因。
So the third reason or causal factor is the existence of a negative attitude. So if someone was to treat us badly or say something unpleasant to us, if we treated it with a positive attitude, then we wouldn't find ourselves generating a mental state of hostility or resentment. So it is the existence of a negative attitude, which is the third necessary cause of disturbing mental phenomena.
好，只要有这三个条件，不需要其他的条件，我们的心中就会产生毁灭性的、负面的，还有垃圾的各种各样的情绪都会产生的。
So with just these three things, these three factors, it is possible that our minds will emerge destructive thoughts, negative thoughts, and unconstructive thoughts. There are no other causes or factors necessary for these kinds of thoughts to arise.
但是这三种因缘条件和三种情绪加起来就是6个3个因3个果，那么这全部都是临时性的，都是突然产生的，它不是永久的，它不是我们的心的本质。
However, if we were to break each one of these factors down into a cause and condition, then we would have 6 of them. In any case, when these causes and factors arise, they do so in a sudden and spontaneous way. They are not long-lasting, so they are not the fundamental essence of our minds.
就像天气不好的时候呢，我们看上去就是满天都是乌云我们看不到蓝天但是因为这个乌云它是突然的它是突然产生的，它是临时的，它不是这个天空的本质，所以呢，它有几个小时以后，或者是1天2天以后呢，它就会消失然后蓝天就会出来的。
So just as when we look at the sky on a day when the weather is really bad, it seems that everything is obscured by thick cloud or fog. In actual fact, these clouds or fog are spontaneously generated, or they're a short-lived phenomenon. They're not the essence of the sky as it is in its original state. So therefore, after a couple of days, this fog or these clouds will pass, and then we will be able to perceive the sky in its original clear state.
如果乌云这些乌云是天空的本质这样子的话，那我们看到的是乌云，我们永远都看不到蓝天。
If it were the case that this fog and clouds was the original essence or basic essence of the sky, then it wouldn't be possible for us to ever see the blue sky.
因为乌云它不是这个天空的本质，所以它时有时无多数的时间我们看到的是蓝天。
So it's because of the fact that fog and clouds are not the basic essence of the sky that we don't see them all the time. In fact, perhaps the majority of the time what we do see is a clear blue sky.
同样的刚才我们讲的3种情绪都不是我们的心的本质，它们都是时有时无的。
And so it is with these three disturbing mental states that we just described. They are also not the basic essence of our mind.
好，所以我们理论上我们发现这个我们的所有的这些烦恼，所有的情绪都是在某种条件下产生的。只要有东西可以去破坏这些条件的话，这些条件被破坏了，这些条件被摧毁了以后呢，那么这些情绪也就没有办法诞生。
So as soon as we realize that our disturbing emotion and agitated states of mind are produced under a certain set of causes and conditions, then when we have a means for eliminating these causes and conditions that enable disturbing emotions to arise, then we have at our disposal a means to eliminate them.
好，这样子以后呢，我们发现我们的这个精神，我们的心是可以提升的。
And in realizing this, we ascertain for ourselves that our minds are certainly able to be upgraded and improved.
然后我们发现我们的这些不好的这些情绪是可以把它端除的，可以把它铲除。
And we also realize that it is possible for us to rid ourselves of our disturbing and agitating states of mind.
那我们用什么东西来铲除这个让我们产生这些烦恼的这些条件、这些因缘呢？就是用智慧来铲除这些不好的这些因缘条件。
So what is it that we use? What method is it that we use to eliminate these causes and conditions that lead to disturbing mental states? Well, this method is precisely wisdom. We rely on wisdom and its application to eliminate these causes and conditions.
然后我们的这个智慧越来越增长智慧增长的时候呢，这个智慧它可以推翻我们的这些错误的这些观念，然后错误的观念推翻了以后呢，这些错误的这些情绪这些不好的情绪同时也就可以消除。
So as our wisdom continues to increase, then it is possible to use it to eliminate our mistaken views. And as our mistaken views and conceptions are eliminated, then so too will our disturbing emotions also be gotten rid of.
好，理论上知道了以后呢，然后我们自己实际的去打坐修心然后我们会体会到确实是这样子，我们会发现我们的智慧正在增长。
So after we've obtained a conceptual or an intellectual understanding of this, we then go about implementing this in meditation practice. And when we begin to do this, we will realize that, yes, in fact, it is really possible to do this. It is definitely possible for our wisdom to increase.
然后智慧增长的同时我们的这些错误的观念，还有这些不好的这些负面的这些烦恼就在降低。
And as this wisdom increases, then our mistaken ideas and conceptions and our negative and disturbing mental states will gradually become less and less.
在这个问题上，佛教和科学他们有一个非常相同的地方，比如说科学很多时候它的理论 是先出来，然后理论先出来了以后呢，然后再去实验啊，最后这个实验啊印证这个理论是对的啊，这就是科学的做法。然后我们佛教里面也是，首先是理论上去了解这个，比如说我们的智慧可不可以增长啊？我们的烦恼能不能从本质上断除啊？首先是要理论，有了理论以后呢，然后自己去体验啊，这个体验就是跟这个科学家在实验室做实验一样。这个时候我们不仅仅是一个理论非常清楚的一个直观的感受，就印证了这个理论是对的。
You could say that in terms of this, that Buddhism and science share a fairly close kind of methodological consensus, insofar as science usually starts off with a hypothesis, a theory that needs to be tested, and then through a process of experimentation, the hypothesis is put to the test, and then ultimately the results of the experiment are used to validate or verify the initial hypothesis. So too it is with Buddhism. We start off with the hypothesis or the question of our wisdom. Is it actually something that is able to be increased? Our disturbing emotions, are these something that are able to be eliminated at their root? And then after having taken the hypothesis that it is to be our hypothesis, then we do through meditation, enter into what you might call the stage of experiment, like a scientist goes into their laboratory. And it's in this stage that we go about proving the veracity of our original hypothesis, not in a theoretical way, but in a directly experiential way. So the methodology here in Buddhism and science is very similar.
好，这个时候我们发现我的生命，我的这个心或者是我的精神是可以被提升的发现了这个道理发现了这个道理，通过这个理论，我们发现了它的这个可能性这样子的时候呢，然后我们的心就开始趋入佛法那我很多人就觉得，那我要去提升一下我自己的这个生命的级别我光是提升我的手机、我的车子、我的房子还不行我还要提升一下我自己的智慧。有这颗心的时候呢，然后我们就是讲今天讲的这个心趋于法这个时候我们的心开始进入佛法。
So when we ascertain that it is possible, we ascertain the possibility of being able to increase our wisdom and improve our minds, and then on this basis decide that in addition to, or perhaps more than, going about constantly improving and upgrading our various telephones and electronic equipment, etc., that we should go about upgrading and enhancing our minds. When this, the recognition of this possibility and the desire to pursue it become something we are interested in, then this is what we refer to as the mind turning towards the Dharma.
然后我们发现那我自己做到了我通过理论，通过我自己的体会做到了以后呢，然后我可以把这个方法可以传递给更多的人，让更多的人也就通过这个方法解决他们的内心当中的很多很多的烦恼，也可以帮助更多的人发现了这个道理的时候呢，那很多人就更加的想去接受这个观念，接受这个方法 这个时候呢，我们的心就更加的容易趋入佛法。
And when we ascertain that it is possible to increase our wisdom in this way, in a theoretical way, and as well as in an experiential way, then many people become interested and in sharing this method or sharing these methods with others. And when, in addition to perceiving the possibility for ourselves, we also become interested in sharing these methods with others, then our mind becomes even more oriented or turned towards the Dharma.
然后这个时候我们会发现我们的另外一个生命的价值生命的价值，我们会发现原来我的生命还可以去做这样子的事情原来我还可以把我自己的智慧提升，把我自己的生命提升。
And when we make this kind of realization, then we are really recognizing a new kind of value for our existences. We realize that a new kind of meaning or a new kind of value. We realize that it's actually now possible to improve or enhance our human lives in this way.
如果我们没有发现这种价值，我们的生命的这种价值的话，那我们真的是很多人不知道我们的生命的价值到底是什么。
And if we're not able to perceive this value of our human existences, then many people are not able to have any idea really of what the meaning or value in their human lives is.
我们很多人就想赚钱，然后去享受，这个是我们这个全世界绝大多数的人的梦想。
For probably the majority of people in the world, their greatest desire is to make more money and to enjoy its fruits.
纽约的华尔街好像是全球白领的梦想。
Wall Street in New York is like a dream place of all the white-collared workers in the world.
很多年轻人年轻的时候去奋斗赚钱，钱赚够了以后去享受。
Many people, young people, when they're young, they expend much energy on making money so that they can then go about enjoying it.
多数的人奋斗20年。
Most people spend at least 20 years of their life laboring away like this.
那20岁的时候，如果20岁的时候去工作，钱赚够的时候已经是40多岁了。
So if you started laboring away like this at age 20 and it took you 20 years until you had enough money, then you wouldn't be 40 until you'd finished this process.
然后我们人65岁、70岁以后，我们的感官的功能开始衰竭，我们这个再多的外边的物质，那么这个时候这些东西来刺激我们的感官，我们这个时候不像年轻的时候一样，因为感官它衰竭了这些功能，它很多时候得不到像年轻的时候的这种感觉，眼耳鼻舌身都是这样子。
But because our sensory organs begin to deteriorate from about 60 years of age, then from this point in time, these various kinds of enjoyments are no longer able to gratify us in the same way or to the same extent as they were able to do when we were young.
那我们赚够了钱，到感官的功能还没有衰竭之前，就只有20年或者是25年。
So that means that from the point that we have earned enough money to enjoy it to the point when our sensory organs start to deteriorate, we only have a period of 20 or 25 years.
这个应该说是最理想、最成功的最成功的人生，但是这个时间确实是非常非常短。
And this is only the case, this is a best case scenario for the most fortunate and successful people. However, the period of time in question is extremely short.
我们人的生命，我们人的身体，我们人的功能只能做这些，如果没有什么其他的追求，那确实是有点悲观，有点消极。
And if our human bodies, our faculties, our human life were only able to be turned to this kind of pursuit, it would be an extremely pitiable situation.
但是佛教给我们指出另外的一个追求，还有更高的追求，更永恒的、更长远的追求。
However, what Buddhism provides for us is a much more long-term pursuit, a pursuit that is more eternal in nature.
那就是提升自己的智慧。
And that is that of enhancing or increasing our wisdom.
好，这个就是我们为什么要学佛的理由。
And this is the reason that we need to go about studying the Buddha Dharma.
也就是说，学佛真正的学佛的人呢，并不是因为解决不了生活上的问题，走投无路的时候才学佛，不是这样子。
So, a genuine student of Buddhism is not one who simply turns to the resources of Buddhism when they encounter a few periods of mishap in their lives.
而是有崇高的理想，有看得更远、有更远的眼光的人就愿意进入这个佛学。
A genuine student is one who, in fact, has extremely noble ideals and is very far-sighted. These are the reasons that they decide to study the Buddha's teachings.
可是这个时候我们会发现，我们的生命虽然是有这么大的价值，有这么有意义，但是呢，很短暂而且在这个过程当中也有随时都有可能我们的生命会消失，所以它非常的脆弱，它来之不易，但是呢，它非常容易失去，所以这个时候呢，我们就会我们就不能拖如果我要进入这个门，我要去学，那就赶紧立即去做。
However, whilst we realize that we're extremely fortunate to have human existences that permit us to engage in this study, we also realize that these existences are extremely short. They're fleeting. We don't know when they're going to end. And so, given this fleeting nature of our existences, we can't afford to postpone or put off entering into the gate of the Dharma. It is something that we need to do immediately.
那么这个崇高的这个追求人才可以有，那么动物有吗？没有除了动物以外的六道轮回佛教讲的六道轮回当中的，连天人都没有这样的，没有机会去追求这样子的理想，所以人生是最这个六道轮回当中最有价值的。
So this kind of noble aspiration or noble pursuit is only something that humans are capable of having. It's not possible for animals to have this kind of pursuit. Neither is it possible for any of the other beings in the 6 realms of samsara, let alone demigods. Those in the God realm, not even they are able to have this kind of noble aspiration or pursuit. So for this reason, we say that human existence is the most precious kind of existence in all of the 6 realms.
那么这个时候我们感觉到，那我们的生命是可以做这么一个伟大的事情，但是呢，我把这么好的机会放弃，然后就去提升一些身外的这些东西这样子的话我们会感觉确实是很不划算。
So, having recognized that it is possible to use these human existences to pursue such a noble goal, then to spend our time instead on improving and enhancing things in our material external world is really not a very sound decision.
发现这个道理对很多人来说，也许是一个他的人生的转折点。
And it's possible that discovering or making this kind of realization will be a turning point in the lives of many people.
因为在他的生命当中多了一个追求，在他的生活当中也多了一个追求。
From the point of view that in having this realization, a person will be equipped with a new pursuit in their lives.
那么这个追求一定会给他带来很多的变化，比如说他的脾气上的变化，还有就是人格、伦理、道德然后就是人的这种很多的可以说对世界观价值观、人生观，还是这个3个观点上面呢，就一定会有很大的变化。
It is very likely that this new kind of pursuit will bring about many kinds of manifest changes in a life of a person who has this kind of realization. Changes in their temperament, changes in their personality, changes in their ethical conduct. We could say that their worldview, their values, their view of their person, etc., all of these 3 different senses of a person are likely to experience great changes as a result of having this new realization or this new pursuit.
好，总的来说，我们以什么样的动力让我们的心趋入佛法呢？就是因为我们发现我们的智慧可以被升级，我们的这个生命可以提升然后我们会发现我不应该把所有的时间都用到提升身外的东西方面，一部分的时间呢，我应该用在提升自己的这个时间上我要把这个时间分配一部分的时间呢，我用来提升我的房子、车子等等等等那么另外的一部分呢，用来我提升我自己那么我一辈子的全部的时间都是用来提升身外的东西，然后我根本不去考虑提升我自己的话，那最后我就吃亏了所以我还是要提升一下自己。那这个想法就是让我们进入佛法。
So, what is the force or the motivation that turns our mind towards the Dharma? It is the recognition that it is possible to increase our wisdom. It's the recognition or the realization that it's possible to improve the level of our human existences. For this reason, it's not reasonable any longer that we should spend all of our time on simply improving or enhancing things external to ourselves. Instead, we should allocate our time, in addition to spending some time improving those material things in our lives, such as our cars or houses or whatever, that we should allocate time to improving our own minds. And that if we don't do so, then we really will be ripping our own selves off. We'll be depriving ourselves by not paying proper attention to this realization and this yes, this recognition is what we refer to as the mind turning towards the Dharma.
好，我们今天上午的这个课就讲到这里。
苏能的一谈这什么呢？东里你别着那帮学讲这个南街网龙这吧，这边做连着啊着儿修，我们啊红本整个人斑马色的红。我们啊红本整个人斑马色的红，我们啊红本整个人斑马色的红。谢谢大家，阿弥陀佛。